projects today with a garden dibble. This is a very simple tool for planting bulbs. These are 1-inch increments so that you know how deep to plant your bulbs. We're going to make our garden dibble today out of poplar. It machines easily. You can find it in almost every lumber yard in the United States. It's relatively inexpensive, and it's usually free of knots. The first thing that we have to do is identify the centers on each end. We can do this by marking lines across the centers, which is a pretty easy and fast way to do it. Or an old way is by just using a pencil as a gauge and finding it that way. Of course, if you've done as many as I have, you don't bother with that, you just mark them. Once we have identified the centers, we're going to use an automatic center punch and put a dimple in each end of the blank. This will make it easy to line it up on the drive center on the headstock end and on the live center on the tailstock end. We'll lock that in place, apply a little pressure to make it bite. We're going to adjust the tool rest now to within about a 1/4 inch of the corners of the material, and then we're going to raise it up to about a 1/4 inch below center and lock it in place. Then we're going to turn it a couple of times by hand just to make sure that the corners don't touch the tool rest. We're going to do this entire project with the skew chisel. It'll cut material like this. It'll scrape material, but neither one of those work very well. If we align the bevel and we do a peeling cut, it does a very nice clean cut. But what we have to do is transfer that into a piece spinning at 3,000 RPMs. We'll turn on the lathe now and then run the speed up to about 3,000 RPMs. But before we start cutting, we want to make sure that our feet are in a comfortable position, about shoulder width apart. We want to put our elbows close to our body and keep the tool handle close to us. We're going to put the tool on the rest before we start and push it up high so that the bevel is touching, and then gently lift the handle and roll the bevel into the cutting position. This way we get a nice clean cut, and we're cutting with our body. We're not pushing away from our body with our hands. This gives us the most control. We continue to take long, smooth cuts. It's more about finesse than heavy cuts. You can always take more off. It's hard to put it back on. You need to cut with a very fluid motion. And we're easing up on the cut as we get to the end. This way we'll avoid making it a cone shape. Once we get down to the opposite end, we're going to roll the tool over and pull it across in the opposite direction. Again, keeping it up against our body and making long, fluid cuts. We want to do this until we get all the flats off. Got just a couple more and just a couple of cuts the entire length of the workpiece.